Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you Michael Del Russi, and we're going to be exploring the Herculean path by building a Herculean physique. Greetings and welcome. How are you, Michael?
Very good, and I'm glad to be with all of you. A pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you here as well. You always have such great information to share. It's information that is hard to find anywhere else, and we're blessed to have it here.
Well, thank you. I do have some exciting new studies to share, one in particular. But I wanted to mention recently, and maybe you can enlighten us on this area of study. I was studying neuroplasticity,
Uh-huh.
and very interesting. I mean, it presents more evidence that our brain is really an amazing mechanism, and certainly there's areas of thinking and and producing in the material world that, my God, we have yet to emphasize and discover. But it was talking about the brain's amazing ability to recognize itself by forming new neural connections
Yes.
throughout life, allowing it to adapt, uh, learn, recover from injury, and change its functions in response to our life's experiences, environment, and even trauma and disease. It's like the brain's rewiring system where nerve cells can compensate for damage or adjust activities, enabling new skills, habits, and even improve cognitive fitness. Well, first of all, I found that to be utterly fascinating and just validating what those of us who believe that the brain can have an effect on mass and form, which I believe Jesus Christ also taught in leaps and bounds. But have you ever studied this concept? Do you know much about it? Because I'm just researching it now. I've come across it in the past, but I'm actually amazed that the brain has so much ability to change according to our outside world and environment. And I was wondering if you have had any experience with that area of study.
Oh, throughout my entire life, I haven't studied neuroplasticity exclusively per se, but I have read on that
Mhm.
as well. The mind is a powerful tool, and it creates a reality. And if you start getting older, you start noticing how much reality your brain creates. Like now that my eyes are not as good as they were for much of my life, I'm finding
Hmm.
my brain, if I can't see something, will give it a shape and form.
Hmm.
Sometimes I don't notice.
It's
Sometimes I do notice it. That, wait a second, that sign shouldn't say that. And then I'll look at it and then realize that my brain couldn't make out the letters, so it just made out letters and put them on there.
hmm
So
but that all intertwines what we've been studying in terms of the law of manifestation and the law of attraction.
yes, it does, because you can train your mind to project better things. And since we seem to react to what we believe about things rather than things as they actually
Hmm.
are, the ability to assign more positive and constructive meanings to things that are happening really improve the quality of your life. They don't give you magic powers that makes everything perfect, but keeping positive about things deliberately and seeing the good in things helps a lot in terms of what you feel about the things that happen to you day by day. And you learn when you try to work on that that it's not that hard to break the habit of looking at things negatively. And then you notice the difference immediately when you start thinking in new ways.
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted to touch upon too in our last get together. And I think that the great mythologies and the vast collection of ancient tales of gods and heroes, monsters, and what have you, there's a connection there. I believe that helps to open up those pathways of creativity and manifestation. So the myths themselves, I believe, imagination is a key component to open up those pathways to what I would call fourth dimensional thinking. Beyond this dimension, creativity on another plane of existence, which of course we can experience here as well. And I think the myths go a long way in helping to open up those pathways, and that's what I believe is the Olympian path in terms of the mind itself. Now that's what we're trying to present to the public here, is that there's so much more to mind, there's so much more to thinking, there's so much more to life. Can you imagine if we acknowledge that? Because focus is everything. Everything begins with focus and imagination. And can you imagine if we started every day with that focus, that my mind creates more than just what I'm seeing and experiencing here? What else can I see? What else can I create? And I think the great myths, the labors of Hercules and Zeus, Hera, and how all of that came about. I think that's why even in our school days, during our school years in school, we found the Greek myths so fascinating at a young age, because it just opened up everything even then. Of course, as we get older, we tend to drift and deal with the challenges that life here brings to us. But I just wonder, and I think about this every day, suppose we kept our focus on the inevitable in terms of what could be, of possibility thinking. I wonder how it would change our lives, how it would perhaps take our lives to another level in a much faster way than it might otherwise if we were just dealing with three-dimensional challenges and possibilities and what have you, but we leave creative imagination out of it. I wonder how our lives would take form if we focused on creative imagination and also the law of expectation, or as Neville Goddard would say, the law of assumption, assuming that we will arrive at that destination that we've been fantasizing over. And so I think imagination as well as focus are two key players when it comes to manifesting what we would like to have in our lives.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about that, and I also use the Greek myths as my primary symbols. Like, for instance, story of the choice of Hercules, where he was in the beginning of his career, and he came upon the crossroads, and crossroads are sacred to Hecate, and he met two young ladies, one whose name was Arete, and the other was called Kakia. Now, normally these are translated into vice and virtue, but they mean a little bit something different in Greek. Arete means, yes, it does mean virtue, but mostly it means personal excellence. So it's what you consider to be the highest and how you embody and manifest the highest. And it could be through athletics, it could be through education, it could be through whatever sphere you decide to take on, but how do you be the best that you could possibly be? And then the kakia, it can mean vice, but usually means ill intent, like holding a grudge or doing things for not the right reason or with a hidden reason that's not good for the other person. Where you're doing bad in a petty way. So the kakia promised him an easy life, and since he's a son of God and he came from a royal family, he can live like the life of a wastrel. and have everything.
Hmm.
He can have money. He can have women, his choice of women. He can have whatever experiences he wanted, and nobody would be able to tell him what to do. And Arati told him about the more difficult path, where you think of the greater good, where you think of how your actions affect everyone, and it'll be a hard path, but then you have a chance of immortality. And to the
Hmm.
you knew somebody who had attained immortality because they were a constellation in the night sky. So no doubt that Hercules went to heaven. There he is. There's his constellation, and you could tell who was up in the heavens by the constellations. They were made stars or collections of stars. So I use
Well,
stories like with the
hmm
Hercules. I ask myself whenever I'm at a crossroads, not literally
hmm
in terms of my life, what would be the wisest thing to do? You can make sloppy decisions based on expedience, or you can make well thought out decisions that affect the greater good. So we have the choice,
hmm
not just once in a lifetime, but once every time we reach a point of making a decision. So that's how I live the myths. I incorporate them into my daily life, and they give me something to frame my experiences in and to extract lessons from them and to keep me on the straight and narrow.
Well, I get excited just hearing you describe the process of what you do, and I'm not quite there yet in terms of utilizing the gifts that the Greeks have given us. One thing I do know in terms of firing up our source of imagination and our ability to create was that the Greek philosophy, and you don't really learn this when you're younger. At least we didn't in my environment. How much it influenced Christianity.
Hmm.
I mean, the teachings of Stoicism and Plato, and it really shaped the core in many ways of what was taught in Christianity. Even some of Paul's teachings resembled what was taught in Stoicism. When I first discovered Stoicism, immediately I discovered the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. But in reality, we know that I believe it was Zeno, the Greek philosopher, really pioneered Stoicism. And I didn't know that early on when I was a fanatic, I guess you would say, in terms of learning about the golden age of the Roman Empire, the early days, the imperial Rome, if you will. I didn't know at that time. I was so busy studying Roman history and the philosophy of Rome that I never really was aware of how much the Roman Empire and the Roman civilization was influenced by almost entirely of Greek mythology and Greek culture and philosophy. It's only when I discovered that Zeno was the original. There may have been one other Greek thinker in that area as well. But when I read a book on Stoicism last year, and that's when I learned so much more about it, and realized that Zeno was the prime mover, if you will, entwining all of that thinking into one package. It's quite a package, I must say. I'm very impressed with Stoic thinking because it does encompass almost everything. And there's some people that think that, well, they leave spirituality out. But I learned that they really don't. They do allow, Stoics do allow for some form of spirituality integrated into their philosophy.
Yes, Stoicism is something I enjoy also. In ancient times, they had philosophers, between lovers of wisdom, and they were
Hmm.
dedicated to answering life's questions. And all of them took different approaches, and all of them came up with some different suggestions, some more popular or
Hmm.
better known than others. But they were still all lovers of truth. They were all lovers of wisdom, and they did give us a lot to think about. Surely they were very deep thinkers, and I like Stoicism as well. I like the Platonism. Not all of Stoicism, all of Platonism, but most of what they said is still of use to me. And where they don't agree with each other, that's very interesting too, because then you see both sides of the coin and it makes you think about what you believe about the things.
But you know what's exciting, yes, as well, and as you're explaining that, it reminds me of the bicameral mind, which, and that's part of it. The bicameral mind, when we were talking a few years ago about the
Yes,
potentials of utilizing the bicameral mind in a focused, direct way here in our lifetime, here and now, as we live in the third dimension. And if we focused on that and made that, we were able to shift from one hemisphere to another, depending on the events and circumstances in our lives. The funny thing is that, as you were just explaining, the Greek teachings, both philosophical and when it comes to the myths, that explains all of that. Because in Greek mythology, well, that was teaching us. Sometimes the gods weren't always pleasant, and
right.
sometimes they were righteous and brought justice to the planet, and that was all part of it. That's part of that teaching, and it's just amazing to me that if we knew how to form the technique individually and collectively on how to focus on this invisible realm, which becomes very visible as we live our lives, how much further it would take us in terms of avoiding destructive thinking, looking beyond before we make any rash decisions or decisions that might affect our lives in not a constructive way. If we would sit back, meditate, and look beyond, what did the myths teach us? What did the gods teach us? So, philosophically and otherwise. And that's why Greek myths as a whole are so exciting, because they were giving us lessons. They were giving us lessons about what we could expect here throughout the course of our lives and the various experiences that we deal with. So I think that's a whole area of power, if you would. That's a whole area of power that we not. And when I say when I say we, I'm describing my own personal experiences right now. That we were denied. We were denied because we grew up in a certain system. In my case, Catholicism, and we missed out completely on where the myths could take us intellectually and creatively if they were very much part of our lives. I think it's really exciting just to try to understand that possibility and focus on it.
I was looking for a book that deals with what you're talking about, but alas, I couldn't find it. I'll find it for our next conversation. That talks about the Olympian deities and how we can use them to learn different life lessons. And it goes over the myths and what the myths teach and how the figure of the god or goddess or hero embodies certain answers to life's questions. And as you pointed out, the gods aren't always good people, but they're very true to psychological type. So you have, like with Demeter, you have mothers who are very overprotective of their daughters and won't let them
Mm-hmm.
live their own lives. You have bosses like Zeus, who
Mm-hmm.
are ladies' men, even though they're married. You have like Kara, who stand for the values of society, but who have husbands who cheat on them or so on and so forth. So the Greek myths weren't like, they weren't always examples in what to do. They were sometimes examples of what happens if you do something. So if you're like Aries,
Exactly.
violent and
Mhm.
nasty and things like that, people are not going to like you. People are not going to want to hang out with you. People are going to be afraid of you, and people are going to avoid you, and uh, and so on and so forth. So the stories to show you those tales in terms of what happens. And Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is a book I highly recommend, um, he
Mhm.
showed how all of us unconsciously are living a set of myths. And usually we know what these myths are, and we're
Mhm.
stuck in like these stories. But if you become conscious of the stories, if you know the myths and if you can identify them, then you can learn the lesson and not get stuck in the story. And
Well, that's what yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
two books that I found very useful in understanding which gods you might be resonant with and whose stories you might be living were by Jean Shinoda Boland. She wrote The Gods in Every Man and The Goddesses in Every Woman. And she wrote several other books
Mhm.
as well. But those books show you how that mechanism works and give you a ways of realizing which Greek myths you're living and what deity that's associated with, and how do you get unstuck from that myth or get better fulfillment or wisdom from the myth. So those are a good places to start if anybody wants to take this particular path of inquiry and become a lover of wisdom themselves.
Well, that's what I find so exciting is that if you study the myths and you expose yourself to the myths, it's your mind, once you focus on them and the lessons that they brought to us and will continue to bring to us, your mind seems to open like as if you're walking a brand new pathway, a brand new road that in some ways is undiscovered, and yet we're living it every day. But when studying the myths, we have another tool to use. We have another tool to enhance our creative thinking and other areas of possibilities in our lives. So when you read and learn from the many teachers of the law of attraction, the law of manifestation, the law of expectation, it's all well, there's all so many wonderful tools. That's why I'm such a devotee of the possibilities of new thought thinking, universal consciousness, and unity. Charles Fillmore and his wife Myrtle, they were great teachers in terms of thinking universally. But here's the key: in mythology, in all of these wonderful myths, we're basically teaching us the same thing. All we can expect to experience in this life now, the myths, in their own way, kind of prepared us for this, or were preparing us for this. And that's a whole other path, and I find it enthralling just to think that way, just to envision that. Just why, like when you envision Hercules and his labors, just thinking about it, it does something to the spirit. It enlivens the spirit, and I can only ponder, what would I have been had I focused on the wonderful lessons of the myths, the varied stories and characters and heroes, and of course, the wonderful philosophical thinking that was brought to us. If we put more of a focus on that as we got older, as we grew, who knows? Who knows what the possibilities would be? So I think that, the mythological teaching should be part of the teachings and techniques that we've been exposed to in terms of creative mind, creating our lives just like we create everything around us. Basically, everything we see around us all started with an idea, a thought, imagination. So I just wonder if we entwined, included the myths, and they've already taught us all of this, and focus on the heroes and everything that went along with it, the amazing adventures. how much more our own imaginations would be enhanced by focusing on these things. And you know what? I really do believe that the sky's the limit in that area. And you know what? It's never too late to start. It's never too late to start. No matter how old we are, it's never too late to start, to open up our ability to receive. As Catherine Ponder, rest her soul, I think she's gone now, but she wrote a book called Opening Up to Receive. And utilizing the myths would be even a more powerful way, I feel, to do that, to open up those channels of creativity. It's really exciting just to think about it.
Yes, it's very exciting. I try to live my life doing what you said just now, in that I live the myths to the fullest extent that I possibly can. And it does use creativity to find new ways of applying them. I've shared this a lot. I'll share it again now. I have diabetes type 2, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody knows exactly what the main cause of it is, but it has a lot of sub causes. So it's been compared to the Hydra, which had one immortal head and lots of other heads that if you chop them up to appear in their place. So in my
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the diabetes, I've managed to keep the numbers low very many times, and sometimes my experimentations lead me for the numbers to go up for a while, but I've always been able to bring them down to manageable levels. And every
Mm-hmm.
head that I've chopped off, every technique that I've mastered, led to other
Mm-hmm.
things that I didn't know before and I didn't notice. So you use like two heads, and nobody seems to know what the exact cause is. Like the one thing that if you treat this one thing, everything else will go away. That's like the immortal head. So I have
Mm-hmm.
my home on the walls in statuary, all sorts of different um, representations of Hercules fighting the Hydra. And that's to
Mm-hmm.
remind me that diabetes is my Hydra. And in the myths,
Mm-hmm.
the Hydra venom kills Hercules ultimately. And diabetes type 2, every diabetic knows that your diabetes can kill you eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So this way, I'm always fighting the Hydra, and I'm always chopping off heads to discover new ones have sprouted, new things have sprouted in this place, new things for me to learn and experiment with. Things that worked for a while don't work again. So you're always approaching the problem anew. And that I guess when our knowledge is greater and we know exactly what causes it, could be a vitamin deficiency, it could be, who knows, like too much of something or too little of something. But until that time, I'm left fighting the Hydra. No matter how well I do, it'll only be a temporary thing, and then the heads will grow back, and I get the Hydra again. So that's not a. It doesn't sound like a positive thing, but it is, because this way keeps me positive, and I'm engaged in trying to keep healthy, and I'm taking control of what I can do to keep healthy. And I know that I won't always succeed, but as long as I try, that's all we can really do. We can try our best. We can give it all we got. We can try to frame it in such a way where we derive not only enjoyment, but also wisdom from whatever it is that we're going through. And living the myths in this way allows me to do that.
Absolutely, because I think living the myths enhances the hero within you.
Yes.
And as the torchbearer, if you will, as you've so eloquently reminded us, in practically every area of our lives, especially moving into areas that, well, quite frankly, not everyone has the courage to explore. But when you're dealing with something like diabetes, and my friend Karen, of course, I watched her for over 20 years. And to give you an example, and that's why we have to utilize our own creative, mythical powers, if you will, because our mythical powers fire up our intuitive powers. So if as an example, I take something for anxiety in the last couple of years. Most of my life, I would refuse to even take an aspirin. But my intuitive powers have taught me, all right, there are times I definitely need something for anxiety. because my anxiety, especially the last couple of years, has affected my blood pressure in an adverse way. But on the front of the bottle, and my doctor is very cooperative and a wonderful man, and he's open to holistic therapies of all kinds. But on the front of the prescription bottle, it says take 3 a day. Now, I know, based on my own research, attempting to be a torchbearer, that I know that 3 tablets of Xanax are probably unwarranted in any case. And the adverse effects of that are, on the kidneys, on the liver. There's some speculation that Xanax can also cause dementia. As a matter of fact, when I saw my doctor last month, I let him know. I said, did you know that there's some recent studies that Xanax can even cause lung cancer? Now, no doctor told me this. I had to utilize my intuition and carry that torch and do my own research. And, as we're talking about this, let me say, of course, we're just researchers. We're not recommending any medical or sharing any medical advice. We're simply researchers presenting information that we have uncovered in our own lives. But the point you're making is, and you're making it well, is that, including our mythical vision, our pathway to being a champion, if you will, in various areas of our lives, can also help others as well as ourselves. So just because, and I've known so many individuals like this in my own lifetime, if the prescription bottle says so-and-so, they just do it. They don't utilize their intuition. They don't utilize their creative thinking. They don't utilize their bicameral mind. Wait a minute now. I know what the bottle says. I know what the prescription says. But how am I feeling and how am I doing day to day? That's number one. Number two, let me do my own research on these various medications. And what does my research say? My physician isn't telling me. He's not giving me the whole story. So that's just one example. And I can tell you, if I took 3 Xanax a day, I'd be on the floor again. I would be on the floor most of the day. There's no reason why anyone should be taking that much Xanax on a day-to-day basis. And when I've explained this to others who also suffer from a certain degree of anxiety, they all seem to agree with me. That's way too much. But here they are. They're recommending 3 tablets a day at 0.5 milligrams a day, which is far too much. No one should have to take that much Xanax, and especially without reading, researching the after effects or the side effects, if you will, that will ultimately manifest themselves. So then you discover you have a fatty liver 2 months after, taking these prescriptions. You're wondering, well, I don't drink, I don't eat fried foods. How did that happen? Well, that's another adverse effect of Xanax and some of these mood-altering medications. But you see how the mythical mind can be entwined with with rational thinking and empower us to carry that torch and seek information and research that not only may help us, but that may help others as well.
Oh, very true. I'm on medication too for my Parkinson's and for my diabetes, and I vary how much I'm taking depending on all the factors, depending on the numbers on my blood sugar for the diabetes, and with the medication for the Parkinson's. I was originally told to take 1 in the morning and 1 at night, then just ramp it up to 1.5 in the morning, 1.5 at night, then 2 in the morning and 2 at night. every ramping up happening every 2 weeks or a week. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that even though taking one pill twice a day made the trembling, which occurs during Parkinson's, subside a little bit, when I upped the
Mm-hmm.
medication, it increased the trembling. So
Oh,
I lowered it back down again, and I still had trembling occasionally, but it was not all the time or not like phenomenally extreme. So then I tried raising it again to get rid of some other symptoms, and I started shaking again. So I told my doctor, and my doctor said he'll leave that up to me because he knows that I experiment and I always report back what the results are. And my
mm-hmm.
eyes were starting to go, so I researched more about the medication, and I found that one of the side effects of the medication is it makes your vision poor. So now I have that, and I'm reading on how I can minimize that or counteract it. And if I can't figure out an answer on my own or find an answer that I can try, I'm going to have to call my doctor and say that my vision is getting very blurry almost all the time. And I'd rather have occasional shaking and good vision than have like poor vision and a little bit less shaking. So that's a decision I'll have to make. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
But isn't it exciting to see the results of your research, and that you've taken upon yourself to carry that torch and do that research?
Yes, it again, it gets rid of the victim mind that a lot of people fall into, uh, that everything is against them and everyone is against them and nothing ever works out for them and people are always doing bad things. If you take control of your life, and again, like you said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a
Right.
medical person at all. I'm an individual, and I'm just basically trying to get the best help that I can from the medical field and from the field beyond the medical field, and I'm open to whatever
Mm-hmm.
happens. I don't have any set thing that I believe has to happen from the beginning. But yeah, it's very important to take control of what's going on, even if that just means keeping your doctor appraised on what you're experiencing and asking what else you can do. Like I remember once I was prescribed the medication for my diabetes, and
Mm-hmm.
I started getting really, really sick a few days later. So then I started researching it more than what I was told initially, and
Mm-hmm.
I had all the rare symptoms except for coma and death. So
Oh my goodness.
just that on the spot.
Oh my goodness.
Did you look at these symptoms? That I had all the rare symptoms except for coma and death. So I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not risking.
Well, thank thank goodness that you did your research on that one.
Should have done it earlier, but again, your doctor gives you something to trust. So
You know, the problem is again, you know, it's unfortunate, but yes, some physicians have broadened their scope, if you will, when it comes to treating their patients, but it's still a cookie cutter consciousness. It's still a cookie cutter consciousness. What they learned in medical school, what they learned as far as various pharmaceuticals, which many times their knowledge, quite frankly, comes from pharmaceutical salesmen. Salesman walks in the door. He has a suitcase. I've seen this, and he presents whatever new prescriptions are on the horizon or just breaking through, if you will. They don't have the time or the ability to do research. They don't have it. They don't have one. And I don't mean to paint with a broad brush, but in this case, I'm going to have to, because most of the time, your physician may be a good guy. I know my guys, I've nothing but the highest respect for him. I know him almost 20 years right here in Verona. And but I had to show him some things. I gave him, I had that, there's a huge volume of information that Life Extension used to come out with every year. They haven't done it lately, but Life Extension protocols, huge volume on every major chronic disease, of course, you can think of, and even diseases that you may not think of. But I turned to the chapter on cancer, and I let him read about IP6. And I gave it to him. I gave it to a huge volume. I said, I want to gift this to you. And I marked the page. I said, please read about IP6. When I saw him a few months later, he said, I was reading about that, Michael. He said, it's very interesting. He said, I think I'm going to recommend it to my cancer patients. Told me right out.
Right.
And even now, as you and I speak, I'm on the internet with holistic cancer groups. And they're talking about, as you probably know, there's this big thing going on now about parasites and fenbendazole, which is a drug that's normally given by veterinarians to animals to rid them of parasites. Well, there's a gentleman by the name of Joe Tippins, who he had cancer. He had tumors all over his lungs. He didn't know it. It wasn't good. He had small cell lung cancer. He did take some chemo, and he did take a radiation for a brief period of time. It wasn't working. So his veterinarian said, look, he said, I use this. He said, we use this typically to deworm animals, dogs, cats, whatever the case. He said, what have you got to lose? He tried it. The reports that I'm reading, that I'm getting, is just incredible. Fenbendazole and ivermectin. Fenbendazole, excuse me, my stuttering here, my throat isn't 100% yet, and ivermectin. Have you heard about these studies? Have you seen it, or have you familiarized yourself with it at all?
I haven't seen the studies. I heard of the drugs because they've been, during COVID, there was a lot of information on them. And a lot of people, especially on the right, politically, were touting the benefits of ivermectin. So I looked at it, and I wasn't in a position to understand it. I didn't need to take the drugs for anything, or the vitamins that I'm facing. So I don't really know that much about it.
Well, this gentleman, Joe Tippins, and I think I haven't gone to see, I haven't looked to see he has a website or anything, but I understand he has a protocol. He's not selling anything. Long story short, he's cancer-free for the last 8 years.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
Yep, using just the fenbendazole and the ivermectin, because now, and here's a real torchbearer. Here's another torchbearer, because we don't know if it will work for everybody. But so far, the success rate looks to be absolutely incredible. People have also reported an alleviation of their arthritis, osteoporosis has been severely relieved, if you will, the pains, the muscle aches, the bone aches in the bones, by using fenbendazole and ivermectin, because obviously they're anti-inflammatory as well as anti-parasitic. And so here we are again. They call them repurposed drugs, just like aspirin. I just read a brand new report, and we've talked about this before. There's a brand new report on aspirin, and it's very positive. Aspirin and cancer, and various forms of cancer. Most people know nothing of this, know absolutely nothing. And so we could label, if it's so, and it appears to be, we can also label aspirin as a potential repurposed drug that can relieve inflammation, relieve the production of COX-2 inhibitors, which we know are the main culprits in systemic inflammation, and who knows what the possibilities are from there. So, I mean, again, we're talking about imagination. We're talking about holistic thinking. This is what the gods brought to us. This is what the gods brought to us by showing us this is the example. This is what you can expect living in this dimension here on this blue sphere, if you will. You're going to expect some good. You're going to expect some bad. You're going to expect betrayal. You're going to expect what we call love, all of it. And the Greek gods and heroes and philosophers brought all of this to us. So all creative thinking can lead to healing, can lead to breakthroughs, can lead to areas of creativity that before this we couldn't even imagine. We know nothing of. There's no evidence of it. There was no evidence of ivermectin and fenbendazole that might actually be repurposed to help humans. And I noticed something else. The iPhone, if you will, the various websites are going strong with all of this. And here's and for months now, months and months. And what's interesting is I haven't heard anything about the FDA stepping in yet, questioning what's happening in the various websites, the information, questioning it. And that opens my eyes. That makes me wonder. They're stepping back. They're stepping back because even and I even hate to give him this much credit, but President Trump has also talked about the FDA being far too restrictive when it comes to drugs that might help people suffering from certain chronic conditions. He was talking about that a few weeks ago, and quite frankly, I have to credit him for that. Yes, we do need these drugs to be tested on some level, but the FDA takes forever, especially when it comes to our life-threatening conditions, and we know what they are. They still follow a simple protocol, the same protocol that they've been following for 40 years. Yes, they've made some improvements, but the treatments that they recommend are, and here's the key, are still very toxic. And I can't tell you how many professors that I've messaged that have given talks and given that they take far too long to make the public even aware of some of these therapies. So we may be entering into a new era here, because IP6, as an example, has been around almost 50 years. I think in our last session, I think I read the breakdown of everything they're discovering, even recently. It's anti-inflammatory. It's an antioxidant. It can lower blood sugar. It seems to be effective against virtually every form of a metastatic condition. Everything. They're saying it's a permanent cure? No, but it's effective. And here's what's really exciting about IP6 that I haven't read with any other treatment. This is something. It appears that it changes the signal in the mutant cells. It changes the cellular signals back to normal. Changes the signal back to normal in mutant cells. That's what studies in vitro and in vivo with certain patients, this is what has been shown. That is really exciting, because your antioxidants, the ones we're all familiar with, well, they stop free radical activity. They fight free radical activity, which we know is very important. because something I didn't think about much lately, but I just read an article on how free radicals attack the collagen in our bodies. That tells me a lot. That tells me that's why it's so important to have a basic antioxidant program going. But IP6 is, and as you know, I've been a proponent and a campaigner. There are books out there. You don't have to take my word for it. By the doctor who pioneered this research, the research is still ongoing. And yet, here's what's interesting too, and I'm trying to get this all in because I think it's important to know. Even some of your holistic cancer websites where you'll have cancer patients get together, and I joined in one last month. I wasn't a member, but I joined in, and they listened to what I had to say. They never heard of it. So once I mentioned it, the gentleman, he went on the internet with everybody. He said, yes. He said, it looks like it has some very strong possibilities. He said, we're going to talk about it in our next program. So as long as this substance has been around, it's still not getting the exposure that it really deserves. And everyone should know about this substance and should include it as a preventive and as a treatment. And again, this is just amateur research. I'm not a physician. I'm a holistic practitioner, but this is what I'm recommending. So I just want to say this quickly. These are some new developments talking about how it can change the signal in abhorrent cells and get them to react normal, and inject an environment of normalcy where these mutant cells are concerned. I'll tell you something. For me, I get excited just thinking about it because I know the possibilities are true and the possibilities are there.
Right, and it's been there, as you pointed out countless times, for over half a century. So why isn't the information better known, especially to people who are looking for not only traditional cures, but alternate cures as well to supplement their therapy?
Absolutely, and the problem remains. Yes, they've come out with new immunotherapy drugs. Well, those of us who've been involved in natural medicine, supposedly these immunotherapy drugs can stimulate our own T cell production, and that's great. The problem is these immunotherapy drugs do have some serious side effects. So you're making progress in one end, but on the other end, well, not so good, because what we need to focus on is non-toxic therapies. It's okay that you're breaking ground. It's wonderful. But what can we do to reduce the toxicity of some of these drugs, even statin drugs, to lower cholesterol? I spoke to someone today who's a very dear friend of mine, one of the two or three that I have. And they put her on 2 statin drugs. She said, Michael, for months, all my muscles were aching. My ankles, my legs, everything. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to take one. Zocor. She's taken Zocor, and another drug her doctor recommended. She's left alone. Within a few weeks, the muscle aches were completely gone. On top of that, I spoke to her today. All of her blood chemistry is fantastic. Her triglycerides low. Her HDL was in the high 60s. Her LDL was below 100, which is good. All of her blood chemistry, her CDC came back exceptional. And I told her, I said, I can't tell you how excited I am to hear that. Why? She utilized what you did. She utilized her creative and intuitive thinking to make her own decision here. Say, wait a minute, my body's telling me something. Let me just see what happens if I just take one prescription a day. And sure enough, her body, for all intents and purposes, recouped and was behaving normal. And the aches and pains, they were alleviated. So this is all exciting. This all comes back to creative thinking. We can go back to the mythologies of the gods and the great philosophers of those era and what they taught us in terms of utilizing our minds creatively and living creatively. It all entwines as one. It all becomes one if you really stop to think about it.
I can see that very clearly. I certainly try all sorts of things that are off the wall to most people in my journey to regain my health. Like I've been using the Viking runes. I used to teach runes back in the 90s. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember enough of it to which runes mean what. So I've added runic chanting to my energy work. And
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm working with the planets because I use the planetary system to help me structure my life and also to bless people, which I do daily, and the blessings,
Mm-hmm.
understanding of the planets. So again,
Mm-hmm.
as you pointed out, we're not doctors, we're researchers, and
Yeah.
these are personal
Yes.
journeys, and we're just sharing our own experiences and our own thoughts. And we know that just because something works for you, it may not work for someone else, or if it works for you now, it may not work for you later. But sure, I've tried many of the things you recommended vitamin-wise, and they've helped.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like what you just said also because, again, we go back to neuroplasticity and the realities of it. And boy, that's exciting. When you think, when you read this research, and you can see what the brain actually does and can do. I, for myself, personally speaking, I'm sorry for every day a negative thought ever enters my head, or a thought, a spirit of anxiety, a spirit of stress. When I think what my mind might be capable of, and because I personally, I'm a worrier by nature, and I've always been, and I'll probably deal with that the rest of my life. But I'm so happy that I discovered the potentials of positive prayer, positive affirmation, and positive thought. And there is a physiological explanation that all of this is very real because it's all energy and it's all you just talked about the chanting and the runes and what have you. And here's the fact of the matter: it's words and vibration. The two goes together. The higher your vibration is, the more creative and effective you will be to enhance your life and bring about healing, bring about new areas of consciousness. It's all possible. It's all possible. So we have to lessen our negative thinking and expect the best. As Neville said, the law of assumption. Assume that you're well. Know that you're well. Assume that your pain is going. Your pains are gone. Your pains no longer exist. It's a very real medicine that we hold within us. We just have to enhance it. We already have the knowledge. Our doctors didn't teach us this. Our school teachers didn't teach us this. The priests that I knew in Catholicism, they didn't teach us this. We know that for myself, I know Jesus Christ was indeed a healer, and he brought these teachings to us. I think the last I checked, I think there were between 31 and 47 healings that we know of. And of course, Scripture says there were many more healings that there isn't room enough to talk about. There isn't room enough to discuss. I'm paraphrasing. So, he taught us this. It will be as you believe. And why would we doubt him? History indicates that he was correct. Science indicates that he was correct. And all of the great teachers and centers, spiritual centers that have brought this to us since that time.
I have a book I recommended the Gene Shinoda Bolen books for inner mythology and the inner stories.
Mm-hmm.
I had gotten the
Mm-hmm.
book years ago. I got it when it first came
Mm-hmm.
out, very ratty condition. It's all beat up. But I
Mm-hmm.
love this book. It's called Celestial 911. All,
That sounds great.
all with your right brain for answers. And it's by Robert Stone. And he,
Robert Stone.
yes, he wrote very many books on manifestation. He worked with the Silva people for a while, and then he went off and did his own thing. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of YouTube videos based on his work as well. And in Celestial 911, they really show you how to use your imagination. So they have you like creating different things through action plans, but it shows you like if you need resources, how to imagine like a universal bank where good deeds count as deposits. And he has exercises for health, exercises for anticipating the future. All things will be helpful to you. And if you don't have an inner mythology that you're already working with, this uses fairies and fairy godmothers and fairyland. But
That's wonderful.
you could modify
That's wonderful.
you could modify it to fit any mythology that you're working with.
Hmm.
And it's a wonderful book.
Hmm.
It was published by Llewellyn, but I believe that it was recently republished. But this is like really ratty. I'm going to show it.
I'm going to have to look for that. I'm not familiar with that book, but I'll certainly have to inquire about that. Robert Stone. I'm going to have to see if I can find that book because that goes right along with what we're trying to share with our listeners and enliven them and lift their spirits and their vibrations based on what we're sharing. And a book like that would certainly be a great supportive tool to take them even further. So I'll definitely have to look that book up. I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, did you get the books I sent? The book I sent, by the way?
I did not.
Okay, so
I did not.
it might be floating around
It,
our mail system.
yeah, our mail system has been slow these days.
Well, hopefully it'll find its way to you. If not, I have another copy, so I'll send you that one. And
Good. I thank you for your efforts.
since we talk about myths and manifestation a lot, how about changing the name of one of the shows to Myths and Manifestation? And this way we could talk about that subject more and focus more on that aspect of the manifestation work.
I would love that because I think the two go hand in hand.
Right.
And with all of the teachers, and I'm familiar with a lot of them, as I know you are, that part has not been fully explored. The great myths of ancient Greece can expand that ability even more so, and our ability to manifest. Just focusing on them, focusing on the tales and the magic that they brought to us, that you feel a sense of excitement just well up within you. And I think you know what I mean. If
Yes.
anyone can understand it, I know you can. There's a feeling of excitement. If I focus on the labors of Hercules, 10 minutes from now, there's an excitement, a childlike excitement wells up within you. And from that comes that sense of imagination. So, yes, I would love that.
So we will do that, and that'll be the new name of the show starting today, since we talked about myths and imagination. Our hour has passed all too quickly, as it always does. Anything new and exciting on the horizon, and how can people contact you and read your work? And
Well, and in our next program, there are some new studies that I'd like to share. We don't have time tonight, but I think you'll find them interesting. One on glucosamine sulfate and increased mortality, something all new, brand new research that it can actually add years to your life as well. That's glucosamine, and that's for another time. They can write to me. We do a positive prayer, focused prayer, and light healing, and I do it every day. And they can write their prayer requests to me, Michael Del Russi, Box 135, Hazel Street, Clifton, New Jersey, apartment 7E 07011. I will do my focus light and prayer work, and I will write you back.
And that is very important. Thank you very much, my friend, and I look forward to our next conversation, and may you have success in all your endeavors. And thank you once again for being here tonight.
Thank you for all that you do for all of us, and looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Okay. To everybody, happy holidays, joyous journeys, and amazing adventures.
Blessings to all.